Welcome to PodTox. Right here we've got it's flipped. It's throwing me off. We've got Marie up top and we've got Matt down at the bottom. We're going to be talking all about his life and just learning about his experiences with addiction, recovery, his music, all types of stuff. So let's go ahead and get into it. Very first thing we wanted to talk about, man, tell us a little bit about your childhood and like just what your situation was whenever you were growing up.
Yeah, so I was pretty much just born right into like violence and chaos, like right off rip. So my very first memory is like of my dad getting hauled away in like a police car after like there being like this big domestic violence dispute, and like that's just, and I remember the words like domestic violence being used, so I remember that right off rip. Mom and dad didn't get along, lots of fighting, lots of abuse. So I'd go live with my mom for a while, and I'd bounce back and forth between mom and dad. So like I never stayed at the same school for longer than a year. And mom was like your traditional like alcoholic. Like she would drink one, and she could not stop until it was just a mess, right? Yeah, so yeah. That's kind of like something I would get used to seeing a lot. Like we'd go around to like, there'd be like parties, and I remember being at family parties or friend parties and like running around with the kids at like some trailer or some trailer park or some, just like poor house somewhere, you know what I mean? And it would always get to a point where my mom would break stuff and get violent and get loud and like mess stuff up, and we'd get kicked out, and I'd go stay with my dad for a while. And so just a lot of bouncing around, a lot of seeing a lot of stuff, a lot of adult positions I was put in pretty quickly. And this is the 90s, right? So there wasn't like the same type of resources that people have today. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just a whole different experience back then. You know what I mean? And that's just kind of what I got used to. It became comfortable for me. You know what I mean? Like that's like, I remember I would always look at other kids in school that like went to the same school their whole lives, and like parents were still together, and like parents showed up to like their football games and stuff like that. And I just remember having all this envy back then. You know what I mean? And just not even be able to imagine, like, what would that be like to live at the same house and have, like, stable parents that, you know what I mean, that didn't put me in all these crazy positions as, like, a kid, But so I was really against drugs. I was really against alcohol. I would dump it out anytime I would see my mom with it. And that's kind of, like, what set the tone for me as, like, a kid, like, just having to grow up real quick, Like, I didn't have much of a childhood. Like, I really had to, like, kind of, pick up the messes from my mom, at really early on. So like that's kind of like really what it was. There was no music. I don't come from a musical background or anything like that. There was no really hobbies. I wasn't like a sporty kid. I was like really underweight. I was pretty much put on Adderall and Ritalin like right off rip because I was really hyperactive because there was stuff wrong with me at home. And this kind of like is where my resentments for like how the pharmaceutical industry is like put around. This is where it begins, because I had pills shoved down my throat as a 6-year-old kid, and pills that like really messed me up, and I didn't want to take the pills. I would always fight to take the pills. No doctor ever asked me like, hey, what's going on at home? Or, hey, you should learn how to breathe. Have you taken a deep breath today? Or, hey, what's your diet like? They never asked any of those things. They just said, oh, here's a unruly kid. Here's amphetamines, here's Ritalin, here's this, here's that. There's something wrong with the kid, so now we're going to medicate the kid. And I was on meds from 6 to 12. I mean, depression medication, Adderall, Ritalin, just all kinds of different stuff, like my whole life. Like I was taught to take a pill for an ailment, you know what I mean?
And no therapy or anything on top of it. It was just the pills.
Yep, absolutely, just the pills, absolutely. I remember, I think I talked to a couple school counselors a few times, but like there was never no consistent therapy. There was never anything like that. It was just straight to a pill, straight to medication, straight to me having to take a pill to be fixed. And that's some of my earliest memories, So, and I remember they separated us too. Like I had to be in like my own class. Like it was really like played out. Like, and I really I wasn't violent or any, like I said, and all the pills that I took, right, it like the way that my body grew, it like, I had stunted growth, right? My dad was like 6'4", 220. I didn't get like any armpit hair or like leg hair till I was like in my 20s, and I was so underweight like my whole life. Like I was like 90 pounds as like a 10-year-old, you know what I mean? Maybe even less, I think I weighed 115 till I was 25.
Did you have like isolation issues just because you weren't doing team sports and all of that, and you were kind of isolated because you were going to a separate class? Did you have problems making friends and all that just because of all this?
But what's really weird about that is I've always been a social butterfly. So somehow I've always had friends no matter where I've gone or what I've done. Everywhere, any city I've ever been to. Because like mind you, I never had enough time to like really develop like, I wasn't in sports, didn't get to do like the legacy thing where I was at the same school forever. But I'd kind of bounce back and forth between schools that I'd been to on and off, you know what I mean? So I developed a core base of friends, and I seem to always people tried picking on me, but I had really good wits. And for some reason, I could just really hold my own in those scenarios, somehow. I have no idea how, but somehow I made it hard to be picked on, and I always seemed to have friends. So, no, I never really seemed to isolate back then. But, I definitely felt different than everybody else. And then I always had immediate anxiety. That's where I be, as a kid, always feeling like I'm on eggshells, like something bad's about to happen. So that feeling in the pit of your stomach. Nobody ever talked to me about what that was. You know what I mean? I just always called it the feeling.
So you feel like it was like you grew up in constant chaos with that fight or flight. You were always in an elevated state.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Always.
that's
Always.
and do you think that the ADHD meds sparked your addiction? Do you think that flicked some sort of switch in your head?
I don't think so, but I can tell you that from that age, one thing I do remember is it being put in my head that if you have a problem, it's fixed with a pill. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying? Like
that mentality.
yes, and it almost being normal. You know what I mean? I didn't know I was taking drugs. I didn't know I was taking amphetamines. I didn't know that I would go on to later abuse these pills. And when I got into my teens, I didn't know that what I was getting was drugs. You know what I mean? I thought I was just getting medicine, and that's what I looked at it as. And then so eventually I started to experiment with drugs. I turned into like a skater kid. I moved back into the city with my mom, and that led to me like drinking alcohol for the first time. And I remember it got rid of that knot in my stomach, and I felt normal and it felt good. So then I started smoking weed, and then I started getting into hallucinogens, and then I ended up like robo tripping and then eating acid while I was robo tripping. And I never came out of that trip. And like I remember the acid was like called Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon hit, and I took 2 hits. Now if you know anything about acid, when you eat acid it takes like 45 minutes or an hour before you start to feel the effects. This shit was on my tongue for 15 minutes, and I noticed something like that, and I took it off my tongue, and I was like, what's happening?
Wow.
And then like I spiraled into this terrible nightmare of a trip, and I didn't know anything about Xanax. I didn't know about, trip killers. I didn't know nothing about that. I ended up freaking out, and I got stuck in it. And I still, to this day, I'll see the ground or patterns move or sides of houses move. And that began my, like, my existence of my step into panic attacks. So I start having these panic attacks. I won't leave my room. I won't go to school. I dropped out of school in the 7th grade. I'm freaking out all the time. And then this is like the middle 2000s. And if you're in America in the middle 2000s, it's real easy to get prescription pills. And I already have a whole history of seeing doctors, right? Because all the stuff's wrong with me. And I'd already learned there's certain ways to talk to them to get things from them, you know what I mean? So my mom had taken me to this doctor, and he gave me Xanax. He prescribed me 2 1-milligram Xanax for like my acid freak out, because we told him, he took some hallucinogens and he didn't come out of it. And, there used to be those like urban legends of the guy who thought he was a glass of orange juice, and you know what I mean? Like I thought that was about to be me. Like I thought I would lost my mind, because it didn't stop. Like I took that acid, and it literally changed me forever. I don't know if it mixed with like the Dex from the robo tripping or like what the combination was, but like I never came out of it. And then I became really like hyper aware. I started smoking weed, and I started having panic attacks. Like I used to be able to smoke weed all day, all the time, and I never even thought of a freak. Like, why would you freak out from smoking weed? And then all of a sudden, I'm freaking out from smoking weed all the time. And then I get the Xanax, and the Xanax was just like the bee's knees. So, like, I could really, for me, like, a lot of people talk about blacking out or passing out or makes them sleepy. Xanax gave me energy. I could snort a Xanny bar and clean my house. I'm snorting. I'm like going out to the bar. Like, it's time to party. You know what I mean? Like, I was one of those people. So
when all this was happening to you, did you like what did your parents do during this whole time? Did they notice all these extra changes? I mean, obviously they noticed, but did they want them fixed, or were they just rolling with the punches?
They had shit going on themselves. My dad, he was like your traditional you know, 80s dad whose dad didn't like show him love, you know, it was like they just showed him hard work. So, you know, my dad didn't know how to communicate like that because he wasn't taught. So it's like, you know, it wasn't his fault. Like just nobody taught him, you know, so he really didn't know how to just be like a loving, caring father because it wasn't taught to him. So he just worked all the time, you know. And my mom, you know, she did her best and she tried getting me help, but like she just had a lot of stuff going on. She had a lot of her own mental issues. And then they start seeing this doctor who like modeled himself after Dr. House. You know, he would always brag. He'd be like, I'm the real life doctor, because his name was Dr. House. I'm the real life Dr. House. And he ended up getting busted by the feds for like writing all these prescriptions, and my parents ended up suing him because he was writing them insane amounts of stuff. He was writing me insane amounts of stuff. But it turned out like my mom and dad had ended up getting back together. My dad built this beautiful home from the ground up. He had run this successful trucking company. We had a generational farm in our name, you know, and then they got into pills, you know, and then like I said, dropped out of school in the 7th grade, and I started having parties. They'd be passed out from some sort of pill coma, and I'd have 100 people upstairs in the house, and then all of a sudden, like, I become like the party guy. And then I figure out that I can tell dad, I could be like, yo, I can get these perk 10s for $7. I'm getting them for like $3, you know, give me $1,000 and I'll go pick all these up. And then I would pick up hundreds of pills, because you could buy hundreds of pills back in like 07, 08. And then that's how I figured out how to become a drug dealer. And then somehow, I don't know how it happened, but then before I know it, we're all just partying with my mom and dad. We're getting high, we're doing drugs together, you know, and then it just becomes normal, this whole big normal thing. And then, like I said, so that life of chaos that I lived, you know, it was really once my grandpa died, my dad went off the edge, and then like we all just started partying real hard together. And then, I mean, we would get blasted. And I remember, you know, if you would think like a normal time of like going to ask your dad for money to leave, like I would have to ask my dad for bars, like Xanax bars, like, oh, I want to go out for a couple days, Dad, can I have some? And it would just be this big like argument and this big fight, and then eventually he'd give them to me. But then I would already like sneak in his safe when he was like out in the truck and go steal like another handful, because there'd be big bags of them in there anyways, you know. So that was just normal for me. That was like my life, you know. And I decided right then and there I was gonna throw the best parties and be the best drug dealer that anybody had ever seen. And those were my goals as a 18, 19-year-old kid in the early 2000s.
During this time, is that when you met Kayla? Like, were you dating Kayla during this time?
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
That came a couple years after. But yeah, so I was just I got into death metal real heavy. I didn't listen to any hip hop. I hated rap. Like, if you came to my parties, it's Slipknot, Cradle of Filth, Doth. Like, we're only listening to crazy heavy metal. Do not bring any hip hop. We're like, I didn't do none of that T-Pain. I didn't do none of that shit. Don't bring it into my house. Like, it's just all death metal. We're busting holes in walls. We're lighting shit on fire. Like, it's just like Lords of Dogtown, like, up in my house. Like, it's just ridiculous. We're gonna go toilet paper people's houses. You know, we're taking four-wheelers and smashing mailboxes. I mean, it was chaotic. I remember the one time this guy like pulled in our front yard to like fight my dad. My dad had a plow truck, and my dad jumped in his plow truck and then just smashed into the dude's side of the car and pushed the car out of the front yard into the street with the dude's girlfriend screaming in the car. All the windows shattered that he hit the side of the truck with, you know, or guns would be popping off because we were a bunch of hillbillies out in the country. So that was that, you know, that was the 101 house. And dad ended up bouncing, bank foreclosed on it. We had some trailers we lived in. That's when I popped in that trap trailer. I don't know if you've seen the cover for that, Maybe It's Me, but I took a picture for that new song I put out, Maybe It's Me, like outside of that trailer. And that's when it got bad, because if you guys were around in that time, it used to be, you know, you would just eat some acid, maybe eat some ecstasy, do some perks. It was fun and cute. And then all of a sudden we're doing meth, and then heroin's around, and then it's like dirty for some reason, you know what I mean? Because I remember there was a point in time that I looked at people who did heroin and meth as like disgusting people. Like, don't come around my house, you know what I mean? It's gross. But then all of a sudden, but then I'm over here doing perk 5s and 10s and Xanax, and I'm, you know, like, I got my pinky out, like, oh, this is fine. I remember that they say there's good drugs and there's bad drugs. So like,
yep, I remember that.
Yep, people be like, I don't do bad drugs. I do good drugs, dude. Keep that shit out of here. I just do 5 dabs a day, and like, you know,
it escalates super quickly.
Yep. And then people started dying. And that's when fentanyl came around. And me personally, I never got into fentanyl just because so I had like this, remember I told you I had anxiety real bad, and I'd do Xanax. So like I had this really weird thing where like I would have to do Xanax to do drugs, if that makes sense. So like if I eat acid, I'm scared I'm gonna freak out. But if I have Xanax, I know that I can like do the Xanax if I freak out from the acid. If I'm gonna do some coke, I have Xanax in case like the coke makes my heart beat too fast. And I would literally like get too coked out, do Xanax, come down too much, do more coke, go back up, do Xanax, and then it was just this crazy thing. Smoke weed, do dabs, gotta do Xanax. Like get too out there on Somali or ecstasy, do Xanax.
Yeah.
So I'm like snorting a hole into my nose because then I convince myself that I can't eat the Xanax. The only way the Xanax works is if I snort it. That's the only way it makes the panic attacks go away. So you know, just absolute delusion, you know, when I think about it now, it's just so crazy, like these things that I accepted as truth. And there was nobody there to teach me anything, you know what I mean? Like my parents were just as lost as I was, if not a little more. My dad was overdosing like crazy. Him and mom were getting all these crazy blowout fights. They'd beat the shit out of each other, man. They really would. They'd smash each other's cars together. And people would joke, be like, oh, Matt Keegan's parents are playing Twisted Metal again, for real.
So complete chaos. So just complete and utter chaos is what your whole life from a child
yeah, absolutely. And then I'm like, I'm in bands. I'm playing like in death metal bands, opening up for like Mushroom Head, opening up for Chimera, just playing like these old hole in the wall, do-it-yourself venues, just being rowdy, crazy. And I guess where that kind of reached the pinnacle is, like I said, it got bad. And I ended up meeting Kayla in the middle of all that. And she ended up coming to live with me because then I just had this proclivity to meet women and then move them into my house immediately. Like just meet them in and just be like, oh, hey, oh, you're great. We're going to be together forever. Move on in, baby. What's up?
That probably has to do so much with your chaotic childhood and always looking for other people to validate you. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
So absolutely. You met her when you were 23.
Yeah, yep. And actually, this is like where we came into that Subtoxin was just getting big back then. And this is back when there were the pills. You can get the pills. And I remember, you know, we used to doctor shop for them. Like me and my mom specifically, like we would, because you could go to a doctor and just be like, all you had to do is piss dirty and you can get like 3 or 4 8s a day. But it was really hard to find a doctor. Like it was different back then. You really had to go out of your way. Like we had to drive like an hour away to find this fucking doctor. We had to jump through all these hoops. But as long as we peed dirty, we would still get the subs, you know what I mean? At least for a little while until like after you had to pee clean, but then we just had somebody we'd buy the pee off of that we knew that like took them clean. It wasn't hard. And then like subs sold like crazy, you know what I mean? So if you get a script of like, you know, 30 or 40 of them, we would only need to keep like 5 or 10 just because we would do such a small amount and then we'd sell the rest. And then that's how my mom paid her rent for like 3 years, like specifically. Like I remember like anytime I was sick, I'd be like hitting my mom up like, yo, you got some subs? Like I'm sick. Like let me come through. Let me just get a half, you know? And then I remember it switched over to the strips, and then the strips were like, you know, still easy to abuse, but obviously they weren't as like easy to snort as like the pills. But then there was also Subutex, there was methadone, there was just like a never-ending thing. And that's just how, that's how it was back then. But it was brutal, you know what I mean? The doctors were brutal, and when they were really mean to addicts. There was a lot of stigma back then, you know what I mean? If you were on Suboxone, you were looked at like as a dope fiend for sure. To me, to a degree, Suboxone would fuck me up. I remember one time I was at work at Taco Bell, and my dad had given me a couple Subutex, and I also had some Perk 10s, and they looked identical, the Subutex and the 10s. And I was only like doing like subs or just like regular Perks and maybe some Oxycontin here and there. And I mixed up the Subutex instead of the 10, and I did half the Subutex, and I was fucking rocked, dude. Like I called my dad, and I was in the middle of Taco Bell, and I was like, it was in the middle of a rush, and I'm like making a quesadilla, and all of a sudden I just come back in the bathroom snorting it up, and I'm like, I start puking everywhere. I'm like, what did I just do? And I remember I was like really, really high for like 3 straight days, like 3 days, like 3 whole days. I was like tore up from this half a Subutex that I did. So essentially, you know, there was no, and by the way, too, back then, there was no MAT, there was none of that, you know what I mean? It was just like you were either on it or you're off it. For us, it was a means to an end, you know what I mean? For us, it was like I would hold off from taking the sub as long as I could to like noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, because usually by the time I take the sub, then the dude hits me up and he's like, hey, I'm on. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, motherfucker. So yeah, I'm just trying to paint a picture of like just how toxic and awful and what that looked like back then. You know what I mean? And Kayla was wrapped up in that too. Kayla was in that with me as well. But me and Kayla got together and we actually calmed down, you know, big time. And then like we'd still like have parties and do like the good drugs, but like we weren't like into like the bad stuff or anything like that. Kayla especially, she really wasn't into the bad things. It was pretty calm and pretty tame for that little while that we lived there. We were only together for 6 months. And I remember she would tell me that she could not get pregnant. And, you know, you don't want to listen to that when somebody says they cannot get pregnant because, you know, unless you have seen some sort of irrefutable proof that that's the case, I mean, nobody knows for sure, you know what I'm saying? But I bought that hook, line, and sinker, no worries, because I didn't, you know, I knew everything back then, so I didn't worry about it. And she ended up getting pregnant, and I did not want that to be the case. I begged for an abortion. I pulled out $500 and I was like, I will take you right now. Let us deal with this. I do not want this kid. I don't want a kid. I can't have a kid. How terrible is that? What are we going to do? We live in a trailer. I don't have any money. You don't have a job. Like, what the hell are we going to do? You're like, take Suboxone. Like, what are we going to do? And so I ended up trying to like just run. I ran, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, that's not my kid. There's no way that's going to be my kid, you know? So she ended up moving out and going back home with her mom, and I ended up like getting wrapped up with some hippies who like kind of came and rescued me. And then that's when we did that's when we really reiterated the good drug phase, where they were like, all right, we don't mess with any pills or any of that shit, but you know, you can come over here and eat acid and take Molly and smoke as many dabs as you want. And then I smoked DMT for the first time. That was pretty cool, actually, the DMT.
Can you please explain what DMT is? Because I'm sure there's so many people in here that might not understand or know what you're talking about.
I think the term is dimethyltryptamine, but essentially what it is it's in you already. Like, it's in your brain, it's in your body, it exists in you already. But it's like a powder. It's very hard to find. You really have to know like the right people to like get like actual DMT. It only lasts for 15 minutes too. And essentially what it does is it's called blasting off, because it literally puts you in a different dimension. Like when I hit it, they filled up like this big 2-foot bong of like thick smoke, and I took one big rip and it tastes like plastic. You hold it in for as long as you can, and when I blew it out, like I was like flying through all these fractal, like insane like colors and stuff like that. And I remember when I came out of it, I just had gained this like different awareness. So there's people who do like the ayahuasca retreats. Like I'm sure you've heard of people doing stuff like that, like going over to Peru and taking ayahuasca and doing stuff like that. And DMT is like the condensed version of that for like 15 minutes. And it's said to have a lot of healing powers, and it's said to have, there's a lot of good that can come from it. And I certainly remember doing it and blasting off and coming out of it and thinking differently. Like, man, why would I do these pills that hurt me? Like, why am I ingesting something that makes me addicted, that hurts me, that takes all my money? Like, it closes my mind, it closes my pupils. Like, I can feel it like shutting me off from the world. And it gave me that awareness, you know what I'm saying?
Is this the first time that you were really like, okay, I don't want to use them anymore? Or did you have times before that where like maybe a friend unalived or something?
I remember I didn't want to be on it at all for a long time, but I just couldn't stop, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember I used to walk around for like 10 years and I would say, I practiced the first step of AA. I know that I'm an addict, you know what I mean? Like I admitted that I have a problem. This is a problem. But like, I couldn't figure out anything past that, you know what I'm saying? But I knew that I didn't want to be on it, but I just couldn't stop. And especially back then, it was so easy to get, and it wasn't killing people, you know what I mean? But then it started killing people. My friend Robbie, he was one of the first people to die, and I crashed his funeral. Like, I showed up to his funeral, a mess, to say the least.
I'm sure.
Absolute mess. I freestyled at his funeral in front of like 100 people. All high, been up for 3 days. There's videos of me on there. It's so embarrassing, but like I know he was laughing, getting a kick out of it. You know what I mean? Like,
is that what started the whole like, I'm kind of liking doing music here and there, or it hadn't started yet?
So I like I said, I was a death metal drummer. Played guitar, and if you came to my house, like I had a party, I would have my bands play. So there would be like little house parties with like in the kitchen, like a whole death metal band just like set up going nuts.
Like a mosh pit, people moshing and
yes, people
chaos.
Going absolutely insane.
I remember those days.
Yeah, just living in it and loving it. And then for some reason I started like freestyling back then, but like I wasn't writing songs. I would just like get high off like Adderall and just start like rapping.
Were you ever into poetry before, like music, like writing things down and like lyrics? Or did you always have like a good connection with words?
I think I like did like the Weird Al thing with some songs as a kid. You know, when Weird Al came out, I think I like did that with some Eminem songs or like something like that. Like I wrote here and there, but like I wasn't like a big writer or anything like that. Like I was like a storyteller. I could write stories. I would like write some pretty entertaining like stories as like a kid. And
that
like
makes sense.
yeah, kids would always want to hear my stories like in class. Like I would always be the one, like when it would be time to like present your stories, like they would be pretty stoked for mine. And yeah, so I started freestyling, but I was pretty good at it. You know what I mean? I could put the words together real good and like entertain people. People would be pretty entertained, but it never really went further than that. And I remember I never could write. I could not sit down and write. I would feel like people were watching me when I would try and write. It was just this weird thing, or that I was stupid for trying to do it because I had anxiety, right? So Kayla has the kid, my daughter. She has the baby. She names Rosalia. We used to be avid readers together. We read the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. And there's a character in there, Zalia, Z-A-L-I-A. That's where Zalia gets her name. Her middle name's Rose. Rose is the symbol of creation throughout the whole book of the Dark Tower series. It's a 7-book series. So Zalia Rose, which I thought Kayla came up with, that had nothing to do with me. I thought that was great. She told me
that is a beautiful name.
Yeah, she said her name's going to be Zalia Rose. And I said, that's fucking amazing. Awesome. You know, and then I decided I wanted to be involved and be a dad. So I'd start getting her on the weekends, but, you know, my house is still not a place where a little, you know, 1-year-old should be, like, bopping around. We ended up getting a maternity test, by the way. 99.99. It was my daughter for sure, you know, but I just didn't want it to be. So ended up kind of starting to step up and just getting her on the weekends. You know, Kayla did real good. She met another guy. You know, she got a job. She worked hard for a while. And she did that for like 4 years, you know, and I was just kind of like in and out of the picture, you know, just like really just getting my daughter to post pictures on Facebook to like look like a cool, caring dad so I can, you know, holler at girls, you know what I'm saying? That was my motive, you know, I mean, just being honest. And so that's how that went for a while. And I would do good for a while and I'd fuck up, I'd do good, I'd mess up, you know what I mean? That was like that was the thing, is like, everybody would say, oh, if you could just get off the drugs, Matt, if you could just figure it out one day. And, you know, my grandma would always tell me, God's got a plan for you. God's got a plan for you. One day he's gonna show out in your life. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, Grandma. I don't see no God. So, mind you, I ran in with these hippies. That's when I discovered music festivals. And that's when I started dressing up like Hunter S. Thompson and going to these big music festivals. And, like I said, I'm a social butterfly. I can walk up to anybody, and then you mix drugs into that situation, I can do anything. So I ended up getting plugged in with this cat who, he was like a festy, you know, he moved stuff through in the scene, ketamine, Molly, coke, acid, you know, sometimes he'd get some really good DMT, and I started moving stuff for him, and I was real good at it. I could really move stuff, and I could just walk up and start talking to people, and I could just sell out quick. And mind you, we're at these huge music festivals, you know what I mean? We're as fast as you can sell it. You know,
yeah.
I'm the guy with the backpack walking around, and I got the bunk police test kit. So I'll test anything because I know everything I got is good. And I'm promoting safe drug use because remember, all we do is good drugs, you know. So then I get wrapped up into that, and then all of a sudden I change my name to Gonzo, and then I start running around in this festy scene, and we start moving this dude got some weight. I mean, we moved weight. It was crazy. I mean, more money than I ever knew what to do with, and I mean, I remember one time I paid somebody to boof a 10 strip of acid, because if you boof it, it's free. So, like, somebody did that in front of me and, like, boofed a whole 10 strip of acid, and we didn't see him for, like, 2 days, dude.
Wow.
I mean, just ignorant stuff. I mean, just making the most insane electric Kool-Aids, and then I started playing drums in like a hippie band and bongos and all that shit, dude. I got wrapped up in it, bro. It was crazy.
Were you taking all this money that you were getting, since it was more than you knew what to do with, were you trying to like buy your daughter's love and stuff like that?
No. Not at all. I was getting her as minimal as possible, and I was just throwing money around. Like, I bought a $500 piece of amethyst, and I was trying to figure out a way to make a hat pin out of it, bro. Like, I was being ridiculous, dude. And not really interested in, you know, my daughter at all. Like, I would get her every now and then, you know what I mean? I was just so gone into that lifestyle, you know, and just so gone into being that person. And I was eating a lot of hallucinogens. That's when I got into ketamine real bad. And I ended up kicking methadone with ketamine, which was really good for the withdrawals, but you can't do a lot of ketamine all the time because it's not good for your bladder because it's a salt. It'll tear your bladder up. And I was doing like a ball a day of ketamine because we were selling a lot, and it was just on tap. As much as I could do. I could do a 1/2 gram line, mix a half a bar in it, and then again, like get up and go do things. Like I was just weird. Like I never been K-holed. Like it didn't do that to me. It gave me energy. It made me comfortable. It just made me focused. It's weird. So I ended up getting this real bad bladder issue going on where like if I had to pee, like I had to stop what I was doing and go to the bathroom and pee because it was just going to drip out and come out. Like it was not good. And that is what led us to taking some drugs up to Michigan and getting hit by a SWAT team. He had this whole thing set up with this dude, and it was a too good to be true deal. Some guy was trying to buy like 8 ounces of blow for $1,200 a zip all the way up, which if somebody's buying that type of weight, they're not paying $1,200 all the way up for a zip, but
exactly.
He saw the dollar signs, and and he's like, yo, Gonzo, you want to ride with me? We're gonna go up and drop us off real quick, hit this lick, and then we were getting ready for Electric Forest that year. And yeah, we never left Michigan. Got hit by this whole SWAT team. Now him and I had never been in trouble before. We had nothing on our record. So essentially what we ended up getting passed down to us was a 2 to 20 sentence. But as long as your minimum is 2 years or under, it's your first charge and your judge agrees, you can go to boot camp. Boot camp's a 90-day parole, but you still got to go through prison. You still got to go to quarantine. You still got to do everything. So I ended up in Jackson, Michigan at this crazy quarantine. Like, mind you, I'd never been to jail. I'm a white boy from Bellevue, Ohio. I am now in Michigan. I am now the minority, and they don't play up here. They do not play in this place. I went to a place called Robert Cotton, and before I went there, they had just had this big riot with these phones. This was in 2016. And they had just instituted this this movement rule where there's no more free movement because of how violent it was there, and it had this real bad reputation. And when people found out I was going there from Jackson, they were looking at me like I was a dead man walking because I have no gang affiliations. I got a brand new prison number. I weighed 115 pounds because I snorted ketamine for breakfast for a whole year, and just all this crazy stuff. So I get to prison and it's a culture shock, bro. And I get messed with right out the gate. And this 6'2" dude with gutter tattooed on the side of his face comes up to me. He's like, yo, man. He's like, I'm going to put it to you like this. He's like, you are going to pay me $50 a week, or me and the boys are going to fucking stab you. I don't know if you ever ate a piece of a fence before. He said, but you're going to find out what that feels like. And I wish I could tell you. I was like, nah, man, we'll throw down right here, homeboy. But nah, I said, hey, let me go make a call real quick.
I would have done the same thing because you're not accustomed to being in a situation like that, and you felt powerless, right?
And then on top of that, the key thing I left out is I'd been on Xanax for 10 years. I'd been on 5-10 milligrams of Xanax for 10 years. I had 2 different doctors, 2 different scripts, and 10 different people I could buy the scripts from, right? When you go to jail, it doesn't matter if you got a prescription with your name on it. They're giving you Depakote, and they're putting you in a paper suit until you prove that you're not going to seize out and fucking die on them. So I had to go through that whole thing, and then now my whole fear in life is not having a Xanax. That's my whole thing. What if I don't have a Xanax and I have a panic attack because I was just crippled by these panic attacks?
Same. I could relate to you 1,000%.
Yep, that sucked. So, but I'm in prison, and they take away and they give you Depakote. So now I have to face that. Now it's like, well, I don't have a choice. You're going to have a panic attack. So essentially in there, I had to accept death. And a bunch of times I was just like, all right, well, I guess I'm just going to die right here on this prison floor, and that's it. What else can I do? You know what I mean? So I'd have these endless attacks because after you withdraw from the Xanax, you have that initial week, and they give you the Depakote, and then they pull that away. Now you just don't have Xanax, and your anxiety is on 1,000. I mean, it's so nasty. You're not supposed to be on Xanax for longer than a few months. Any doctor will tell you that, and I've heard that from doctors. Them giving that to me for 10 years was very irresponsible. But again, most doctors aren't taught, it's the medicine, what it is now. It's just to prescribe medicine, pills, addictive pills. You know what I mean? That's all it's for anymore. So I, in there going through this withdrawal, this guy tells me, hey, you're going to get stabbed if you go. So I go make some calls. I ain't got nobody. All my friends, mind you, remember I told you I'm shelling out all this money. I'm throwing all this.
Yep, they're not there.
They went and broke in my house with a crowbar and took everything. all my work, we had 10, 15 grand in work back at the crib, and we had TVs, we had tapestries, we had art, we had stone, we had all kinds of rare stuff that you picked up over the festivals over the years. And yeah, these people that swore they were my friends, people that I put on, people that I put money in their pocket, that I helped them eat, that I helped pay their bills, they fucking robbed me blind. They took everything. When I got out, I had a trash bag of hand-me-down clothes that I came out to. You know what I mean? So that's what like really put me on game. That's when I learned that very first valuable lesson, that them people you run with are not your friends. Because I literally was in prison, like out there. I was like, how are they getting along without me? What's going on? Like the scene needs me. They need Gonzo. Like, who's bringing all the good drugs? Like, what's happening? Turns out they got along just fine. They got along real good, actually, because they went and done took everything. So no money's getting sent to me. I'm on my own. You know what I mean? I had to figure this out. And I'll tell you, when I was there, I was in this TV room one day, and I got fucked with. I got jumped twice. I used the wrong sink. You can't use certain sinks in there. When you're white, you're the minority. You're segregated by race. And listen, I'm not. Those are the rules. You follow the rules. You know, it is what it is. And so whites go with whites, and I'm in the TV room on the white side, and I'm like kind of popping on my hands like this and banging on some air drums. This white dude comes up to me and he's like, yo, bro, he's like, you drum? I was like, yes, I drum, absolutely. And he's like, oh, well, we got a music program here, and we're a death metal band looking for a drummer. He's like, I'm just gonna tell you this right now. If you're not, don't waste our time and tell me that you're not good, and we get you a call out and get you there. Because if you come in there and you're not good and you're trash, you're not walking out of that room, just so you know. And I was like, put me in, coach. I was like, I do this. And so the guitarist killed his wife. Had been coming down from a level, like he was in a level 4, and he'd been there for like 8 or 9 years. Some crazy meth bender where he killed his wife, and came down to level 1 where I was at, and it was a guitarist, and that's all this dude did was play like insane guitar. And we meshed immediately. We played guitar together, and like when we played, I played through his songs like we'd been playing for years. You know what I mean? Because I'm a freestyler. I can just figure it out on the go, and I'd been playing drums for 10 years. You know, I can play some complicated stuff. Like I can play Slipknot, I can play Chimera, I can play any song off of Slipknot's Iowa album, which if anybody here knows Iowa, Joey Jordison, it's some complicated stuff. But I totally self-taught. You know, I just watched the videos over and over again. So we meshed really well. And turns out they were a group of Odinists, where they believed in like Odin and Thor. So they were lightweight, like white supremacists, but not. They weren't like Nazi symbols or anything like that. They had hammers all over them, and they believed in like Thor and like just silly things, right? Silly fucking things. But whatever. They let me in their band, and from then on, I was untouchable for the rest of the place. So like essentially, like me playing drums saved my fucking life, like big time.
Wow.
Because it could have went really bad for me in there, and that's when I found out that Subtoxin's everywhere in prison, everywhere. I mean, motherfucking everywhere. I mean, it literally became like the world, like where like people would be sick waiting for the guy to get on, and they'd all come around, because then I end up in this cube with the dude who supplies the whole prison with subs, right? And it's cheap in there too. I'm talking like $5 would get me a piece that'd get me off for the whole day. So then all of a sudden I'm like blowing down subs, going to play drums, getting high. You know what I mean? In prison. I remember one day I woke up sick. I woke up in prison and I was sick. And dope sick from the Subtoxin. And, you know, so I was like, man, how did this happen? That's so crazy. But, yes. But in there, I kind of came across, like, my first, like, experience with God. You know what I mean? Like, I had, like, my very first, like, I went to church. I was in there with a serial killer. He was called the Shoestring Strangler. If anybody wants to Google him, that's real. The Shoestring Strangler in Michigan. This guy put his hands on me and like prayed over me, and he like killed like 5 or 6 women. And the only reason they hadn't given him the death penalty is because he made a deal to give up the bodies for a lighter sentence. And
wow.
Yeah, it was a really weird thing having a serial killer put hands on you and pray over you.
During this time, so you had your kind of in touch moment with religion and all that stuff. Did you also have like maybe a therapist? Or I know you have to talk to certain people sometimes whenever you're in prison. So did any of that even matter to you? Like, did you have someone that changed your thinking?
We would I had some guys I would talk to about God, and I just had a really like generic understanding, you know, about God and like what that was about. You know, there were some guys I talked to. My girlfriend that I had on and off, that's not Kayla, but Monica, she was like my fiance at the time. She had like rode with me through the whole thing. And because like I said, me and Kayla broke up and we never really recovered from that. Kayla was off doing her own thing, you know, being a mom, doing her best. I met this other girl named Monica. Monica was like putting money on my books, making it so I could call her every single day. I mean, she was like really with me all the time, you know. And you know, no, but other than that, I some things were put in perspective. It was kind of the longest I'd been sober aside from the subs that I was abusing, you know, I was getting high off of. And I just wanted to be better. I knew that. I knew that I wasn't going to sell drugs anymore. I knew that I wasn't going to risk coming back to this place because this was terrifying. Like, I wasn't one of those guys that came through. I was like, nah, fam, this ain't no big deal. Bro, it was terrifying. I seen a dude's head beat in with a lock. I seen another dude get stabbed with a piece of fence. They threatened to stab me. They jumped me twice. I don't want to come back to this place, bro. This sucks. I'm never coming. You know what I mean? So.
How long did you end up doing?
All together under 2 years. So like
Okay.
what happened is like I had to sit in county, fight the case, plead guilty, wait for all that, go to quarantine, go through that whole thing, wait for all that, and then go to prison, and then you just wait for boot camp to come. And there was a couple times they told me boot camp wasn't coming to get me. I was doing the 2 to 20. They were like, oh, like you don't just plead out to boot camp, you plead out to the 2 to 20, and then boot camp comes and picks you up whenever. They don't tell you when. It's this big thing. So there's that anxiety gnawing at the pit of your stomach. Like, I'm looking down the barrel of 2 to 20 fucking years. Like, when am I ever going to get out of here, you know? And then boot camp finally came and got me. 90-day parole. It was this whole thing. We did, like, volunteer work down in Michigan when they had that Flint water crisis. We passed out water bottles. We did stuff at, like, mental homes. We picked up trash on the side of the road. We did crazy PT workouts and exercises. Man, we did all kinds of crazy stuff. And, you know, we stayed active. And it was cool. It showed me that I could work out real heavy, you know what I mean? That I was tough, you know, for the first time.
When you started working out, did you like to start that dopamine? Did you like that feeling of dopamine? Because I know as an addict, when I started to find my love for working out, I love that feeling. I was chasing that feeling constantly of that dopamine rush.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was awesome. Loved every minute of it. And loved how far I could push myself too, because I had never been somebody that could like run or like, you know, do things of that nature, you know, because I always had asthma.
How did going into prison and then going into boot camp mess with you? Because I mean, you didn't have that structure and those rules and all that shit.
Never. It taught me, it showed me that I had that in me, that I could do that. Like, damn, I could go do 50 push-ups. I could run a mile.
Now, because I know Jell did this to me, I make my bed the second I get out of my bed in the morning. Like, it is just like certain things are, did you start to like do daily things like that just became your new normal?
Absolutely. I was already a clean freak. I was already like, do drugs and clean. So like
me too.
Yeah, cleaning. Yeah, I would clean my bathroom with a toothbrush. Like people be out like flapping their gums. I'm in my bathroom cleaning at like 4 a.m. No, we go clean, baby. That's my favorite thing to do. I'd be lifting people's feet up, sweeping under them with the sweeper.
When you did get like completely sober and away from everything, did you notice that you had like a lot of OCD tendencies now? Because I know as like a neat freak, that kind of started to escalate in my recovery because I would see something out of place and it would be like messing with my head.
Yeah, I kind of came to know myself a little bit without drugs for the first time. You know what I mean? Like, just kind of came to understand like there's, you know, this is what I like. This is what I don't like. You know what I mean? Just kind of getting to see myself really a little bit for the first time. I didn't see a lot of myself because as soon as I got out of boot camp, the very first thing I did was go to a doctor and get prescribed Adderall. So, you know, this is like where my experience, the harm reduction did not work for me. All right. So like a lot of people will, you know, they'll be on Adderall, they'll be on all these different meds. Well, I tried that route and it was so fucking bad for me personally. Now I am never one to say like, it doesn't work. Just because it didn't work for me, then that doesn't mean that your sobriety or your recovery is valid. I don't give a fuck. Like everybody, there are so many different paths to recovery. There are people, I know people still to this day that like go to festivals. I have some friends that just went to Lost Lands and got twisted and they went back to their $85,000 a year jobs that following Monday and they're doing fucking great with themselves. You know what I mean? Some people are just wired. For me, my wiring, I can't do it. So first thing I did was go back and get put on Adderall because I can just tell any doctor, hey, I can only mildly pay attention. And they're like, here's amphetamines, you know, so I got put back on 230s a day, And then I started telling the doctor, oh, well, you know, I just get these restless legs at night because of the Adderall. And they're like, oh, well, here's the 2,500 milligrams of gabapentin, which if you know anything about gabapentin, you know, I learned how to really abuse those things. You know what I mean? Like I learned how to, I don't want to go in detail, but I learned how to abuse the shit out of those. And then after that, then I'm like, well, I can't really sleep at night, you know, because I'm taking all this stuff. He's like, well, here's Ambien. And I'm like, well, I'm working this hard factory job. You know, I got this good insurance and my back hurts. And he's like, oh, well, here's Vicodin, you know. So I'm like, all of a sudden, you know, I'm not going to do drugs. I'm not messing with anything on the streets because fentanyl's in everything now. This is 2016, 17, you know, but like I'm sharing that I'm out, I'm doing better, I'm in recovery, but I'm also sharing that I'm on all these meds, you know, I'm taking out. And like I'm butting heads with people in the recovery community because I'm butting heads with old heads in old traditional AA, NA shit like that, and I'm over here showing up to their events like telling my recovery story, but also saying I take Adderall, I take and then I discovered Kratom, and then I'm advocating for Kratom, Adderall, all this different stuff. But like in reality, I'm so disconnected from reality because I'm taking so much different stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just, for me, it's disconnected, and it changed me.
Do you feel like you need to save people from taking Suboxone, or do you think that it helps people so that they could get their bearing in life and then choose whatever pathway they choose?
For me, it's not like I just want people to be woken up to the fact of like what it is for some of us. You know what I mean? I want both sides to be brought to the table, because one side has shouted that this is a life-saving medication, which it is. Agreed. You know how many times I've like fucking had to kick drugs? Suboxone has been instrumental for me. Like if there was not Suboxone, every time I went to rehab, I probably wouldn't have followed through because there wouldn't be a medicine that can like get me through those nasty withdrawals, right? What they don't share on the other side of it is for quite a few people, it's not all that great taking it. For like, there are a lot of people, it turns them into zombies. It takes away their libido. It takes away a lot of things. And that's the only thing that I am trying to get pushed out there, that for me, I just feel like should be shared. Not that you shouldn't take it, just that everything, all angles of it should be shared, because I don't think that it's killing people to say, hey, there are some downsides to this. You know what I'm saying? There are, for some people, your quality of life isn't as great as it's made out to be. Like they just say, a lot of it is a spouse that, oh, you know, you're going to take MAT and your life is going to be just as good. When in reality, for a lot of people, it's not. For a lot of people, and there's people that reach out to me constantly and share this, like, listen, I was manipulated into getting out of this. I was told that like my life, that I was just going to take this medication, that was going to be that. But this is the reality. I wake up every day, I'm miserable until I have to take this. And then I feel like shit every single day. Like my libido's gone, my marriage isn't happy. And I just, you know, I just don't see that being shared. And then it's really hard for me. It's so hard for me to get on board with this being this big saving medication when the same companies who cause this push it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm so untrusting of these companies because I was there. I was in the middle of all this. I got pills shoved down my throat as a kid. That you can't tell me there's not an agenda. You can't tell me that these people have put profits above people for decades now. How many lawsuits, how many people have died as a result of just them being so irresponsible? You can't even sue them. You can't even get a settlement because they got a shell company within a shell company within a shell company. And if they were really concerned about accountability and really concerned about helping people, then there would be accountability when stuff went wrong like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm not against MAT at all. I work with the MAT clinic here. I refer people to that MAT clinic that reach out and want to go that route. But that MAT clinic shares both sides. You know what I'm saying? It says, okay, this is what could happen. You could end up very addicted. It could be very hard for you to get off. You could go through some nasty withdrawals. You could taper off and come off and be fine, as some people are. Some people do a slow taper and they're able to just step right off. For me, I was tapered to 1/8 for a long time, 1/8 of a strip, and I was sick for 30 days off of 1/8 of a fucking strip. And a lot of people will share that same thing who went through that exact same thing. So it's like, a lot of people just come across like they hear my song and they just think that my whole image and goal is to be like, you know, oh, MAT, you can't do MAT. When in reality, I'm a little more progressive and more towards MAT than you would think, because if it's cooler to me to have somebody alive than dead. You know what I'm saying? Like if somebody's like not shooting fentanyl on their neck and like being a good parent and a successful member of society, and Suboxone or methadone was the way that they did that, cool. That's fucking awesome. That's great. I mean, that's awesome. But if you're also a person, and there's no representation for a person like this either, aside really for me, like I don't see anybody else doing this. But if you're a person who's been on this medication, it's not working for them, and you're having a bad time and you want to get off this medication, which there there's a lot of people who are in that position. You know what I'm saying? That's what I want to put out there and like put, and that's a small part of what I do. Like that's not like my whole identity. Like I have a lot of other songs, you know what I'm saying? But like at the end of the day, I just want us all to be aware that the same companies who produced millions of pills through the early 2000s before they got caught and eventually shut down a decade and a half later are now the same companies telling us it's the gold standard to push out another highly addictive opiate. You know what I'm saying? Which Suboxone is an opiate, which I just don't understand. With all the advances in modern technology, with all the advances that they have, why does it have to be like that? Why does it have to have the hooks that it has? You know what I'm saying? And then at the same time, why do they make it so hard to get Sublocade? There's a lot of people that tell me their doctors will fight them tooth and nail to get Sublocade.
Because I experienced that as well. And I was on subs for almost 8 years. My doctor kept putting me off, telling me, because they have to have a certain license to be able to provide the Sublocade, because it's actually different licensing than just writing for Suboxone, because you have the medication in your building. So they couldn't get it for years and they kept putting me off. But I get messages all the time with people saying similar stories. Like, my doctor told me Sublocade doesn't work, or my doctor told me I'm not a good candidate. And guess what? Those people are already off of Suboxone because they got the Sublocade shot through another doctor and they're doing well. There's multiple avenues. If you're feeling stuck on medicated assisted treatment, multiple ways that you can either wean down or do it the correct way with a doctor.
Sure. And what I don't understand the most is, like, why can't we all be on the same side? Like, why is it that when I say something like this and share that, hey, there's a community of us that MAT doesn't work for us. For me, I have to do abstinence-based because that's just, for me, that's what works. You know what I mean? And I'm just sharing what works for me. And nowhere in any video that I've ever put out, in any piece of content, have I ever told anybody what they should or shouldn't do. I just share what works for me, and I just open the door of, if you want to walk through this door, I can lead you through this door. If you don't want to walk through this door, that's fine. I'm not going to shame you for it. I don't shame anybody for it. This is just what's worked for me. Again, when the MAT community will shout, there's multiple pathways to recovery, right? Well, abstinence is one of those pathways, and that's the pathway that I like to share for people. And it's not that I'm pushing people away or telling people you shouldn't. I'm telling you, I wish you could see. I answer a lot of messages. I talk to a lot of people, and I tell people all the time, you know, people say, should I or shouldn't I? I say, listen, that's a decision that you have to make yourself. You know, are you at risk for dying? Do you go do fentanyl to the point where you could fucking die? Then maybe you should go beyond it, because it'd be much better for you to be alive than to be dead. But at the end of the day, my platform, my message, what I want to put out there is just abstinence. Like, that's what's worked for me, and that's it. Like, that for me, this is my energetic manifestation. If your energetic manifestation aligns with mine, follow me and let's go this way. That is it. Like, I'm just here to show you what's worked for me. I'm not here to, like, tell you what's right and what's wrong, because I can't tell you what's right and what's wrong. I can tell you how I feel about certain situations. I can tell you that there's things that I trust, there's things that I don't trust. I can tell you what my experience was, because I have lived through it. I do have lived experience, and that's it.
I know that you like abstinent based, and I know that your relapse was because of Kratom. What are your thoughts on Kratom?
So what's cool about Kratom is there's a whole community behind it, that it keeps people out of the mouth of Big Pharma. You know what I mean? A lot of people, I know people that have successfully used, again, this is such a nuanced conversation, because it's so complex. We're all so different. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
For me, I can't take Kratom because I just can't fucking take anything. I suck at it. Like, my track record of taking things, like, if I take something, and the 12-step book, the big book, talks about there being this obsession, right? This obsession to use. Like, for me, that's a very real thing. Like, if I just go take Kratom right now and I get off on it and it makes me feel a little good, I'm like, man, I want to do that all the time. Let's do that every day. And then for me, there was nasty withdrawals to Kratom. Nasty withdrawals. I've been to rehab 3 separate times for Kratom.
How much were you taking of Kratom? Like, how did it start? You walked into a store, you were having one of those days? Like, I want to know.
So I was just researching legal ways to get high after I got out of prison. You know what I mean? I was just trying to find, trying to find, you know, like the whole,
a loophole. A loophole.
Yeah, I was looking for the fucking loophole. That's what I wanted, the loophole so bad. And there's that whole, what's the term? They use like the new chemicals, tianeptine, all the different things, nootropics. So I was in like a nootropics thing on Reddit, and then I seen kratom, and I started researching it, and I started going to head shops, and then before I know it, I'm like ordering kilos off it from a doctor straight from Indonesia, because I'm a plug type of guy, you know what I mean? I go straight to the source. So I'm getting like 20 kilos in the mail from some guy in Indonesia, from some doctor, and then I'm taking huge scoops, big scoops every like 4 to 5 hours. And what's crazy about kratom is like the withdrawal for me would start within 4 to 5 hours. Like I would be sick, dope sick within 4 to 5 fucking hours. It was so insane. But yeah, was I taking it absolutely irresponsibly? Yeah, for sure. But like, that's the thing with me as an addict. I don't have that button. I can't responsibly take anything. If I'm on my own and you leave me to my own devices, I can't responsibly take a single thing. I just don't have that bone in me. I might be able to start for a little bit, but it will definitely turn into hell. So it started off, just like me taking it, and oh my God, I wanted to share kratom with the world. I was turning everybody onto it. I was like, this is gonna get everybody off of fentanyl, and we're gonna save lives, and this is what it is. And I got some people hooked on that. I got some people hooked, and they ended up fucking their life up, and one of my buddies had to go to rehab to get off of it, and he spent like 20 grand on it. Because then we got into the extracts. These extracts are popping up everywhere. They used to be real hard to find. Now they're at every gas station, head shop, vape shop, smoke shop. They are everywhere. The OPMS and the MIT 45 extract are the most wicked fucking things. You know what I mean? For me, they were as close as I could get to getting off on an opiate. It wasn't even all that much. And
so you were taking liquid or powder when you were
liquid
saying
shots, 50 times liquid shots.
And somebody was asking, how did it not give you the wobbles?
Because kratom has a ceiling effect, much like Subtoxin. So like there's only so high you can get off of it. There's only so much you can go before it'll just make you get nauseous and get super sick. And that's the thing, is like I was just nauseous and sick like 90% of the time, barely getting like a little nod here and there. Like the only way I'd get a nod if I got up early that morning and then I like took it at like 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and I would just like catch this I had to be tired to catch the nod. But like you're not going to be able to like drink 3 shots at like 4 in the afternoon and be fucked up. If you drink more than 2, you're throwing up and getting sick.
This is the hard part about kratom, is because I used kratom too for a short time, and the shit it just did to my body, like it just jacked me. It wasn't even the withdrawals or anything that I was worried about. It was just what was happening while I was taking it. Mm-hmm. And whenever you talk to the kratom community, yes, it's just like another MAT medication. There are pros and cons, and for some people they have really negative effects that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about. And dude, I was like, I was having issues with like my bladder, whereas I would have to pee constantly. It was fucking me up. My sides would hurt all the time.
Yeah, me too. I had to pee all the time.
Yeah. It's there's got to be something wrong with that if that's happening to you. So that's the thing that I try and make sure I tell people whenever they think about using kratom. If you can do it responsibly, which a lot of drug addicts can't do, then you're golden. But if you can't use it responsibly, then don't bother, because you're going to hurt yourself more than you're going to help yourself.
That is a perfect way to put it too. And like, if I ever come off as polarizing, dude, I don't mean to. Like, I really don't mean to, you know what I mean? And like, honestly, sometimes too, there are times I've like gotten in my emotions and responded out of emotion to videos. Like, you got to be real spiritually fit. You got to be spiritually fit and put together to have this type of stuff and to take, because people will say things. And like, if I cannot get on TikTok hungry. If I have not eaten and like I'm not prayed up and like I haven't like made my meetings or like done like the correct things to have my head in, I'll fire back and say some ignorant stuff. I've said some ignorant stuff. I've had to go back and delete comments because like, like I'm a human being and like I'm still trying to figure this out too. So like, by no means I'm like, am I like this, like, you know what I mean? I fuck up too. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm still trying to get this figured out.
How did you get your platform? Like, how did you start? Like, so you got out of prison and what? You just came on TikTok and started sharing? Like, nope. How did you grow?
Nope. So I had a buddy here in town, and I thought TikTok was whack, bro. I was never getting on TikTok ever. Like, TikTok's fucking stupid. You'll never catch me dead on TikTok ever. But I got my buddy, there's a buddy here, his name was Richie Weber, that I used to use with, and he did a lot of huge stuff here from the same town that I'm in. And I always watched what he did, and I wanted to do that. I wanted to like have a social media platform, share a vision, but like I always had a vision for something different, and I wanted to be as like authentic and as real as possible. Like I didn't want to I wanted to share everything. I wanted to share the good with the bad, because I've seen a lot of these like recovery like influencers or whatever you'd like to call them, but like I just didn't see like the bad, ugly side of things being shared. I just seen like the good, like people celebrating wins and like this happened and this happened, but like I wanted people to be like, nah, like this is a part of it too. You know what I'm saying? Like here's what you're gonna go through in this space. Like, you know, I remember I seen Drug Addiction by Kalichi, and that really like inspired me back then. I thought that was like this really cool thing, man. I remember seeing Drug Addiction and being like, man. And my girlfriend Monica at the time, she's like, you could write something like that one day. And I was like, you think I could? Excuse me. She's like, you think I could? I was like, you think I could write something like that? And she's like, yeah. I never wrote a song, mind you. And so I'm prescribed all these pills, right? Seeing all this doctor shopping like crazy, getting all this stuff. And then I started dabbling with fentanyl. And this is probably how a lot of people died, to be honest, because like for me, I was real scared of it. So I would get like a pill and do like a little tiny bit, and then like it would hit me and I'd freak out. I don't understand what the allure to fentanyl is. Like to me, it was just like snorting a brick. Like, you know what I mean? A brick that might kill you. You know, like that's what it was like for me. I hated it every single time. I did not get off on fentanyl. Thank God, one time. Never made it to the needle, never got off on fentanyl once, but man, did I put stuff up my nose like crazy and, you know, just ingest things. So I'm in this terrible place. I'm taking like an ounce of kratom a day. I'm taking Neurontin, Adderall. I somehow got them giving me like 120 perks a month for my back. There's nothing wrong with my back, but it did hurt, you know, and but somehow they're giving me perks in like 2017, which was like a big deal to even get. And I ended up getting a hold of Richie, and I'm like, I was working at this job, and you can do the FMLA thing where you can like go get paid and like you know, go away and go to rehab. So that's what I did. As I ended up going to rehab to this place in Florida, and it was a really good place. You know, it was where I like remember how I said I like had come in contact with myself. Like I really came in contact with myself at this place. You know,
is that Palm Beach Recovery? Is that the
no,
place? Okay.
Nope. That was this was the recovery team. But okay. I came in contact with Palm Beach Recovery by going to these meetings, and I was like, all right, I'm going to digest the 12 steps. I'm going to work AA, because I was always against AA. I was always trying to I tried to make my own meetings for people who see what a lot of these MAT people don't, I was one of y'all. Like I was, I tried going to, I went to the my local rec center and had meetings for people who were in recovery but still took substances, because I thought that people that were doing AA and NA were judgmental fucking asshole hypocrites, you know, and a lot of them there were a lot of people that were asshole fucking hypocrites that ended up doing horrific fucking stuff that were judging me because I was taking Adderall, but I was still showing up trying to help people, right? So that was a big thing for me. But this time around, I was like, all right, I'm going to try it from the opposite end. I'm going to try and be completely abstinent, go through the 12 steps for real, and really digest this and, you know, figure this out. So the first thing somebody told me was, when I was at a meeting, they're like, I want you to go to a meeting and look for somebody who has something that you want. You know what I'm saying? So that was the first thing he says, just find somebody that your spirit aligns with. So I'm at this meeting in Florida. There's 150 people. There's this big crazy thing, and I'm looking around at these people. I'm like, nah, fuck that guy. I was like, yeah. I was like, oh. And I lock eyes with this dude, and he's tatted up. He looked cool. And the way that he talked about the big book is what I like the most. And he was just calm. And what I noticed first is his legs didn't shake. He just sat still in the chair and looked cool as a cucumber. And I was like, man, I want that. Whatever he has, because I'm over here moving, fidgeting, can't sit still, you know, bouncing up and down. You know, I just wanted whatever he had. I wanted what he had. So I asked him to be my sponsor. And he is still a huge part of my life today, and that's what ended up getting me plugged into what I do with PBRC now. But this guy changed my life. This dude is like a brother to me. This dude is like a brother figure that I never had, somebody that I can call. I literally just talked to him yesterday. I call him all the time, you know what I mean? He's still
That's amazing. You have somebody that you know truly cares about you, that
never
no matter
had that.
What you're going through, you
never
finally found it.
And that's what I espouse too, that a lot of people are so against abstinence based or the 12 step, and it's I just don't see why, because it promotes community. It promotes nobody asked me for anything. I can walk into a room full of people anywhere in the world and be sat down with people who understand me better than my family, better than anybody, anywhere at any time. I can go to AA meeting anywhere, and when I walk in that room, there are going to be people who know my plight better than anybody. Yeah.
Now, I know that you said that your parents struggle. Did you have to, during your recovery journey, kind of take a step back from your family? Or how do you handle knowing that they're still doing whatever and you're living this different lifestyle today?
Mom ended up going to prison.
Wow.
She got caught making meth with my brother and sister in the house. So she was only gonna get 2 years, but she tried to fight it, and they smacked her with 6. So, and she needed every bit of it, and she sat every bit of those 6 years. So
Wow.
I did my 2 inside of her 6, and then I ended up going to Florida, and then I did another year in Florida through everything. So the platform did not really exist until I went to Florida. I really didn't have any plans for it, but I knew I wanted to do something, and I knew I was going to do it. I can tell you, like, when I got on that plane, I wrote something down. I said, I don't know what it is I'm going to do, but one day I'm going to do something. And I didn't rap. I had no rap songs. I was a death metal drummer, you know what I mean? I ended up getting my drums down to Florida, and I was going to be this big death metal drummer. That's what I wanted to do. And my ex at the time, we had a big falling out. Monica, we had a huge falling out, and she had told me that she had heard this NF song, and she's like, I just hear you doing this. She said, you should try and write some songs. And I was already kind of feeling that, being pushed in that direction. So like I wrote a song, and it was good, and it got a really good response from people. It was the very first song I wrote. It was called A Demon Inside. And I remember I wrote a second song, and it was called Comfortable in Chaos. And that's like, I have yet to record that song, but I'm telling you guys, I'm gonna put that song out. It's gonna smack. It's a good one. It's about my whole life. It's pretty cool. And but it was the second song I wrote, and I started like performing it at like these open mics, and I started doing other songs, and like people would cry when I would like do these songs, and like they would, you know what I mean? And mind you, like I can't deliver, I can't like barely, I sound awful when I rap, I sound like nervous, you know what I mean? Like I don't have that like stage presence, but like people are still listening, you know what I mean? And then I wrote this song called One Day to my daughter, and I put it into America's Got Talent, and they ended up reaching back out to me, and they're like, hey, we want you to come to Miami and try out for us. So
That's amazing.
yeah, it was crazy. And so I go to Miami, I perform it. There's like a bunch of people in the room. Like some of the moms cry that I'm in the room with, and they send us all out, and they call just me back in the room. And then they have me go on to a second part. And then I try out again. I do the same thing, but we were on camera this time. And then the next part was the judges. They had 3 auditions you got to make it through. So the second one, they said, I want you to share a positive thing. Like, what happened in your life that's positive? And I was like, well, these songs have been going viral on YouTube, and my mom's prison's listens to them, and I'm going to my mom's prison next week to perform these songs to her and all the women at the prison. And I thought that was like a pretty inspiring thing, but I don't think they did, because they never called me back after that. So I didn't make it to the 3rd audition. I never heard from them again.
But that must have made you have so much more confidence with yourself and your music.
Yep.
And where you wanted to go in life.
Yep. So then I started really taking it seriously, and I would spend about an hour a day writing and rehearsing and just rapping in my car every single day for an hour, rapping in my car every single day for an hour, taking it very seriously, like, oh man, I'm gonna make this. And I was just posting YouTube videos that would get like 5,000 views, and to me, like, that was it. Like, I'm gonna make it, you know. I'd post something on Facebook and get like 100 likes and like 30 shares, and I was like, oh, that's it. Like, I'm famous now. Y'all don't even know. Y'all better line up and make an appointment with me, you know. So I was just gassed up by it, you know what I mean? It was just cool. It was this cool thing, but I didn't have anything recorded. I didn't have a producer. I didn't have anything like that. I just, you know, I was really just believing in myself, really hungry for it, and kept doing it.
So did you have, because I feel like with the addiction issues and just the way you grew up, that validation from everybody was probably huge for you. Did you also beat yourself up whenever you had those haters? Because I'm sure there had to be a random one or two.
Yeah, for sure. People would laugh at me when I told them I was a rapper. You know, I remember I was like, I told this one girl I had a crush on. I was a server in Delray, and I thought that she was going to think that I was so cool. And I was like, she's like, well, what do you do when you're out here? I'm like, yeah, I'm a rapper. And she goes, ha, 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 ha. You're 30 and you're a rapper? Get a life, dude. Literally said that. It just crushed me. You know what I mean? So yeah, for sure. I definitely took it with a grain of salt, but like there was just something inside of me compelling me to do this, and just like filling me with this delusional belief that like I was gonna do what Kalichi did, because I would watch Kalichi a lot, and I was like, man, I want to do what he does. You know, I want to go make music and perform at recovery events, and I want to tell a story that's gonna inspire people, and I want to give people something real, dude. I want to give people I want to like bring something that nobody else has brought to the table. I want to bring something entirely different and just like talk about some real shit. So come back home, 2020 happens, COVID happens, you know, so then I'm like, oh, I get convinced that the world's gonna end, and I end up leaving Florida, stopping by a nice head shop on the way home, spending like $600 on kratom extract, and moved back into my grandma's, and then a really bad relapse came through. And then I got on that unemployment, the $800 a week unemployment for like 16 weeks. And I ended up going out into the woods and getting weird.
Do you know how many people that I know during COVID that got that COVID relief money and just blew it on drugs? Blew it.
Right.
Money that would have been like you could have put away for a house is completely gone now. And your life is down the drain again, and you're trying to regroup and refix everything. Where was your daughter during all this time?
I talked to her a few times while I was in Florida. You know, she's with the mom still. A big blowout happened with the mom. She actually had lived with me for a little while, and like that thing when I was seeing the doctor, she lived with me for like 6 months, and I'd take her to school in the morning and all that jazz. And then I had to go to rehab in Florida, and she ended up staying with the grandma because the mom, Kayla, got twisted on some stuff. Kayla started to get bad. It started to get real bad. And I didn't know how bad it was until like it was that bad, you know. So yeah. Kayla just basically decided, she's like, I don't want to do this anymore, you know what I mean? And you know, I'm not trashing her character, but that's what happened, you know what I mean? That's the reality of what happened. She didn't want to be a mom no more. That's her words, not mine.
So how did you handle the death of Kayla? Because I know, like, now you're like, oh my God, I'm addicted, or I'm trying to be in recovery, whatever, and you have a daughter.
So when I came back in that relapse, I'd still get her on my weekends. I always showed up for her, you know what I mean? I was always there for her, always getting her, but she hadn't seen her mom in a while. Kayla was still alive at this point, and it wasn't until I just got to this really bad place again, and I was like, all right, I have to go back to detox. I'm taking, you know, 6 kratom extract shots a day. I'm back into like doing drugs. I was buying Xanax from people, and I had this really big scare where I bought some fake bars. And I did them, and I remember doing 2 of them, and it didn't do anything. I realized, okay, these are fake. And I was like, wow, what if that was fucking fentanyl? I'd be dead.
Right.
Because I went straight from doing half the bar and not doing anything to doing a whole other bar. Like, I did the whole thing. So if that would have had just a tiny little bit, I wouldn't be having this. Because I did it in my room alone in the middle of the night, I'd be dead. You know, so that scared me. And I was like, all right, it's just, the game is so different. Everybody's so shady. It's just so dirty. The game is so fucking filthy now. You know what I mean? And I was in some filthy places on this last run.
How long were you sober before that? Before the
About
relapse?
a year. About a year. Yep, perfect. About a year. And I went through the steps. I did the whole 12 steps, and it was amazing. Me and Matt grew very close. You know, Matt was always there at the drop of the hat, and he's always reading with guys, taking them through the steps. You know, there's a never-ending thing in Florida where you're just taking guys through steps. If that's what you want to do, and that's what he does. That's his whole life. I mean, he walks that talk, you know what I mean? And he taught me a lot, and went through a lot together, went through the steps, and I just stopped making the meetings. I stopped calling them. I stopped reaching out to them, and then the 2020 thing happened, and then my defenses are broken down. I'm not working with a God of my understanding. I'm not really practicing any of these principles, and then boom, I relapse. You know, all too easy to relapse. I was just looking for an excuse, really, at that point. So get back home, go through that nasty thing, go back to detox again, get out, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get so serious this time. I'm gonna get so serious. I'm gonna find the most hardcore, big book thumping, God preaching AA guy. I'm gonna ask him to be my sponsor. I'm gonna have him hit me over the head, and he's gonna tell me about myself. So I did, and I found that guy, and that man is still in my life to this day, and that he's brought about such change in my life. It's so crazy, the things he's added. He helped me be a better father. He helped me understand a relationship with my higher power, which I call God, you know, the God of the Bible. And he just did so much for me that I never seen or understood. But we took a year to go through the steps. And I mean, showing up at this dude's house, getting cracked over the head, just learning things about myself. You know, that's when I learned how to meet my parents at the place that they were at. And that's how I learned to truly forgive my parents. You know, I met them with the knowledge that they had. You know what I mean? They were working with what they knew at the time. And I was able to truly forgive them. And then I started focusing on being a good dad. My daughter's 6 or 7 at this time. And back in 2020, early 2021. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to really give this a go and like really build a relationship with her. Because she knew me as her dad, but like she'd never been able to get like vulnerable with me, like for real, like actually open up to me. Because like I'd never really had been there like that for her. So I started like being there like that for her. getting her on my weekends, getting her some days during the week, just getting as active and involved with her as I possibly could. And that's when I put this birthday together for her where I hired Elsa and I took some videos, and then I made like a before and after video, and I uploaded it to TikTok. It was the very first video I uploaded. It did like 130,000 views, very first, and then boom, all of a sudden now I have 25,000 followers on TikTok overnight. Bam, and then I had wrote this song called Ghosts, and I recorded a video, and it's like a really early recording, really early video. Production really was pretty okay for the beat, but that was like the very first thing I did, was here in Bellevue, and had a little traction off that, and would post like little reels like that, and those went viral. And then I just started like doing rap videos in my car, and those started going viral. And then around that time is when Kayla passed away. Now, I didn't have nice things to say about her. I would talk a lot of shit on her. I'd say a lot of nasty shit about her, like, hey, you abandoned our daughter, you did this, you chose drugs, you did a bunch of filthy stuff. In reality, I did the same thing, you know what I mean? Maybe not to the degree that she did. I didn't go as hard as she did, for sure, but I still was a piece of shit, but that put things in perspective for me when she passed. And I wished that I had reached out to her more, because I blocked her on everything. And Zalia, my daughter, would be like, I would love to hear from my mom. But when that happened, she finally got a little bit of closure, because she never understood why her mom just disappeared out of her life, you know what I mean? But then when her mom passed, she got some closure about the situation. There's still a lot of trauma there that my daughter's going to have to deal with one day.
Do you believe in therapy? Do you believe in maybe,
I do.
Getting your daughter therapy or trauma therapy?
I would love nothing more, but she's just like me at that age. She's very shut down. She's very unwilling to talk about it. And then two, her grandparents don't really want to push the issue. I try and push the issue as much as I can, but she lives with them and not with me. She lived with me. We'd be doing therapy. We'd be talking about it. You know what I mean? And everything's on the table here. There's no off limits, off the table conversation. She can ask about my addiction. She can. I tell her all the time, if there's ever a question you want to ask me the question. Don't ever feel like you can't talk to me about something, because
I love that.
I spend a lot of my time with her. Like, I want her to feel like I never did. You know
Absolutely. What I mean? Like she could come to you, you're approachable to her.
Yeah. And I just don't allow for awkward silences. You know what I mean? Like, I put everything out on the table all the time. And sometimes I mess up too. And like, that's what my sponsor taught me with him, was like, you got to show her that it's okay to make a mistake, admit to the mistake. And that's the most important thing you can do for your kid, is being like, hey, I messed up. I'm sorry. Let's figure out how we can do it better next time. You know what I mean? So I do that with her a lot.
Are you trying to get custody currently, or?
She's happy where she's at. I'm moving into my own apartment next month, and she'll have her own room.
That's amazing. Good for you. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I've turned it over to God. I've kind of just said, I would love for her to live with me and love to have that opportunity to be there for her and raise her, because the grandparents, they're grandparents. They're raising her as like grandparents will. You know what I mean? Yes. I want to raise her as a father would, you know what I mean, with, chores, and just, I want her to be prepared for life, you know what I'm saying, because it's an unforgiving, cruel bitch, and I want her to be strong, and it's just, we're not there yet, but I serve a powerful God, and if he sees it fit for her to come be with me, then cool, then she's gonna come be with me, and it's gonna be great, and we're gonna have a good time together. And if not, I'm gonna respect that too, because it's not in my control, trust me, I have tried to wrestle control from things for a long time, but
do you worry about her using?
Absolutely. She's got it in her blood, dude. She's got the double whammy. She's got her mom and her dad. And the best thing I can do is just demonstrate a good, healthy life, and just set an example. I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't vape. You know what I mean? Like, I don't do anything. Like, when I say I'm abstinent, I am 100% abstinent. And I try and show her healthy options, and show her the benefits of exercise and meditation and cold showers and stuff like that. She's not interested in any of it whatsoever, but I'm planting seeds. Planting seeds. That's all I can look at it as.
What are your goals as far as like your music career goes? What are you trying to do with your music career?
Take it as far as I possibly can. I'm already in the bonus rounds. How did I even get here? Like, both those songs have 100,000 streams. Like, that is so mind blowing to me, as like somebody who's been laughed at and ridiculed for being a 33-year-old rapper. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just went to Washington, D.C. They put me up in a hotel. Like, I got to take my mom and my family with me. I got to take like my closest recovery friends with me. Like, You know, that was a whole experience. I got to go to do the Michiana Fest in Indiana. You know what I mean? They put me up in a hotel. Like, what is happening right now? Like, people are talking about paying me to come rap at their events. You know what I mean? Like, that's, I don't know. Like, to me, if this is as big as it got and this is as far as I made it, cool. I'd be grateful for that. And what a cool story to tell. Like, man, I did that. How cool. But
it is a cool story.
In my mind, might sound delusional to you, it might sound delusional to most people watching, but I just believe it's going to go very far. I believe I can see myself on a stage in front of 20,000 people. You know, I can, not only can I see it, but I can feel it. I know it's going to happen. And if it doesn't,
I love your confidence. Seriously.
But what's cool, but I'm not attached to that outcome though either. If it doesn't happen, cool, you know, whatever. We'll go on to the next thing, and wherever it is that I'm meant to go will be cool, and that's where God will have me, and it'll be dope. But if that's the case, let's go. How cool would that be, man?
Just as somebody who gets, lately, I've started getting severe anxiety. Like, whenever I sit down to do the podcast and everything like that, I'm like dying. Inside, I don't know what to do with myself. What have you been doing whenever you have to go stand up in front of people? Like, I just saw you on a video singing the other day.
In the rain.
Yeah, it is like, I don't know if I could do that, man.
For one, I practice that. I rehearse that for an hour a day. Like an hour. I go through the songs over and over and over for an hour. I set a timer. I'm not stopping rehearsing the set one right after another in succession until an hour has passed. So like when that time comes, I'm so tight, so rehearsed, it's just muscle memory. Like, yeah, my heart's beating out of my chest. Oh yeah, absolutely. But like I'll talk a little bit and then I'll just be like, man, all my nerves went away. And mind you, like when I got on that stage, I was on that stage after senators, after people at the border, like border agents, people that worked at the CIA, like real motherfuckers that were up there talking about some heavy stuff. And then here comes Matt Keegan. They're like, oh, here comes Matt. I'm like, whoa, those are some real people up there. There's like guys with like, they got assistants holding umbrellas for them. There's senators from Texas. Like that Lost Voices of Fentanyl event was no joke. That was a real big thing. And, you know, once I got up in there, like stepping into my purpose, I was nervous at first, but then usually I'll do the Dear Kayla song first, just because that it's really simple and there's no like acrobatic, like, it's real simple and it's really from the heart and I could just really get lost in it. And then as soon as I do that, and then I notice that like I get a response from the crowd, and then once I like connect, I'm in there. And then it's just like, there's no more fear. There's no more nothing. It's just like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I feel like I'm supposed to be here. This feels great. I love this, you know, it's cool.
How do you handle the controversy? Because I know there are people just in here listening for that reason.
I wanted to talk about that real quick because somebody noticed too. I was real quiet when Matt was talking about everything whenever it came to MAT and all that. And there was a reason for that. There was a lot of stupidity. And thank you, mods, for getting some of them out of here. But you got to understand, because I don't know if you know my story, Matt, but I do pretty much the exact same thing, because I felt like I was tricked onto subs, and I had those negative side effects. And as much as I shared the positives of MAT, I share the positives of all of it, because people were in here. You can have the same breath where you're promoting MAT like crazy, but then trying to put out the facts that abstinence-based, you know, everything isn't as effective. Like that's usually one of the biggest things. And I'm trying to think the best way to put this. The way that people who strongly support MAT, the people who it works for, when they are on MAT and it's working for them, the way they feel about abstinence is the way like you feel about MAT. Just because you had those strong negative side effects, you don't understand if MAT and subs are working for you, you don't understand what it feels like to be on those and have your emotions just be gone. Sure. Like it sucks.
Right. And the most important thing is like, I'm not trying to say my way works better than their way. You know what I'm saying? I just wish we could all get along and like it not be such a polarizing thing for me to just say, this didn't work for me. If it doesn't work for you, like this is what I did to be okay. That's all I'm saying. Like I am not trying to say that like no, like I said, I challenge anybody to go out and find anywhere in anything that I've ever told people not to go on MAT, ever. Never said it. I've never been, I hated those people. I fucking hated those people. And I dealt, like I said, at one point, I was one of them. I was on Adderall. I was on Kratom. I was promoting being able to take substances and still say that you're in recovery. And I still promote that. I still agree with that. But for me, it's just my particular, what works for me is abstinence based. So like what I'm saying is like, if that's a route that you're interested in doing, follow me. Come, that's what my content is for. My content is for abstinence-based people that want to overcome anxiety, that want to overcome, and just live a positive life and then help the next person. Because that's what we want to do, is we want to inspire and help the next person. And we want to use social media for good, because it can be a really toxic place. But like the way, there's just some people that are just so disillusioned. And as soon as they hear one negative thing about MAT, they say, oh, you're killing people. When in reality, there's people who are just so miserable on that. And so what? If somebody shares that they're miserable on MAT, are they killing people too? I don't think so. I think it's just an experience. You know what I mean? I want the people, my detractors, to understand we're on the same team. We're here to support each other. It's not us versus you. It's us versus the fucking people who pull the strings in this system, this corrupt, broken system. That's who we need to be going after. Those people, not each other.
I agree. We do need to try to come together. And the thing is like, I honestly don't think I would be sitting here if it wasn't for MAT. I could not in the beginning get a day behind me. I just couldn't do it. There was I wanted it, but I couldn't do it. So I see both sides of the story, and I try to meet people where they're at. In the beginning of recovery, sometimes, even at all stages, sometimes people need to utilize different tools that work for them. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm not going to stop talking about it. And I'm not going to change my message, because I don't feel like what I'm saying is, like, I'm not out here to be polarizing. And listen, I'm not going to be talking about Subtoxin for, like, I got other stuff to talk about. Like, this is not my identity. My identity is not the guy who's talking about fucking MAT. Like, I have a whole lot of other songs that cover a lot of different topics, and I'm moving on. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll put out what I got to put out, and you know what I mean? If people want to still keep talking, I mean, that's their prerogative. No matter what, at the end of the day, I don't, like Logic. You guys know Logic, the rapper?
Yep.
Guy has done numbers that people can't even conceive, and he'll drop stuff and I will hear people trash him all the time. So it doesn't matter what level you get at, there's always going to be somebody that hates you, no matter what it is that you do.
And sometimes when somebody hates you, you're doing a good job. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I've always heard that. Like,
as much as I wish, for me though, I really wish I could bring people together. For me, I really wish that I could sit somebody down like Chad Sabora, or like the worst people that hate me the most, and just like all of us just get on the same team.
Let's do it. Why don't we do it?
I'm down. I really am down.
Would you be down if we could organize something where we could all really come together and talk logically?
That's one of the reasons that like we started doing this, is because I watched so many people who were just getting bad raps for what they were saying, and I knew if I could get those people a platform where they could share their experience, share their side, and not have people eating them alive at the same time, then maybe even if you don't agree with it, at least maybe there's a little bit of understanding. And that's all that people need, really, just a little bit of understanding.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I'm down to do that, but I'm not changing my position. You know what I mean?
No, and you don't have to. See, I think that we could all have an adult conversation and all try to come together. I love stuff like that. Like, I like people that have different backgrounds and see things different ways, and we all learn and grow.
Right. And again, there is no right or wrong way to do recovery. It's what works.
You're right.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's whatever works. It's whatever works, and like, I'm not the arbiter of what. I'm just sharing what works for me. Like I said, this is my conscious manifestation. Like, if you want to come in this energetic direction, come in this. There's different plugs for different ways. Maybe your plug is the MAT plug. Plug into the MAT people. Go with them. You know what I'm saying? Just because you're going in that general direction doesn't mean like that we can't all be on the exact same team. Because like I said, this is the most important thing. It's not us versus each other. It's us versus the people that are running these corporations, the people that are behind the scenes that don't want us to have the conversations about them. those are the ones that are making this world difficult for us. Those are the ones who are making it like this. And we're all down here squabbling over what? You know what I'm saying? And there's so many of these different polarizing issues that we keep arguing when we need to realize we outnumber them like 10,000 to 1. And that's where we need to put our energy collectively. We have the technology exists. We could totally do it. But they're so good at keeping us squabbling amongst each other. It's like we're not going to get it figured out, it seems sometimes. So the best medicine is, to me, just keep doing the next right thing and just try and help people and be there for them when I can. And you know what I mean? And just let God sort out the rest. And that's kind of where I stand.
Absolutely.
I love it. We are at that mark where we usually try and cut it, but I want to make sure, Matt, do you have anything else you want to get out there? I want to make sure you plug all of your social medias, and tell everyone where they can find all your music.
The best place to find like me intimately and what I really talk about all the time is Facebook. I'm posting on there all the time. Just Matt Keegan Recovery. That's my artist page. Then there's the Matt Keegan Recovery on TikTok where I do the music, and then on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, just Matt Keegan. You can find me on everything. You know, you might not agree with a lot of the stuff that I talk about, but at the end of the day, like, it's okay to have a differing opinion. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people who I take the good and leave the bad. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people who have sides of them that there's things that I don't agree with, but there's still things that are good that I can take away. You know what I'm saying? I don't want them silenced and banned and never able to speak again. Like, I still, you know what I mean? I take the good and I leave the bad. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's the thing, is like, it's like I said earlier, it's very complex. We all have differing opinions, and we're all not going to be exactly on the exact same page with every single thing. And that's okay. Like, we need to celebrate those differences. We need to celebrate each other's differences, because it's totally cool to be different and have differing opinions.
All right, guys, we're going to close
Bye,
it all.
guys.
See you guys.
See you all later.